Good evening. My name's Anne Marie Brown, and I'll be presenting you this evening Timeless Gardening. This is my final presentation for the Well 440 course, and this is presenting some of the work that I've studied and researched in the last 6 weeks. As we age, life goes through many changes. Many people will often enjoy the options throughout their lives of having time alone, which can bring solitude and peace. It's relaxing and it gives us time to rethink our thought process and regroup into what we do in our daily lives. For others, not having the option to decide whether you want time alone can be a very different outlook on life. Going through life with the lack of communication, compassion, and support from others can actually both cause physical and mental health problems as the years go by. As time passes for someone that eventually loses communication with a spouse, family, friends, days and weeks can go by that are very sad and painful. In our country, it's being brought out to the open to find out how we can help our older Americans. Baby boomers are getting older. There's a huge surge of people over 55 to 60. So one way to do this is that the month of May, for the several years now, has been considered Older Americans Month. It was a project or an idea that was created by the government, and I decided to go with May since it was our project and getting Older Americans Month as part of the Timeless Gardening. Bringing awareness to Older Americans Month, you have to understand the effects of social isolation and loneliness. Some of these symptoms actually can be very similar to when a person, as if they have been smoking for years. It's similar to having heart disease, and some of the studies that have shown, and there was one study that showed about 32,624 healthy men over a 4-year period showed about 511 deaths. It's a large public health problem. Not many people really pay attention to it. They don't see it that way, but it is definitely something that is increasing. Under this study, men who were not married, had 6 or less friends, were at a 90% higher risk of heart disease deaths and deaths associated with accidents or suicide. Social isolation can cause potential life-threatening changes to someone who is a smoker. 43% of seniors felt lonely on a regular basis, also from other studies. The important aspect to know is that within the older population, not all who are isolated are lonely, and not all who are lonely are isolated. This is a common problem that has to move forward, and we have to solve with the various issues. Some of the findings that were done by the National Institute of Healthcare Management, it's a research organization with the health insurance industry. There were areas of information that they released to the Health Resource and Service Administration. The numbers that were shown are 43% of seniors that felt lonely on a regular basis. There's 45% increase of mortality, and loneliness can be as if one of these individuals or all of these individuals were smoking about 15 cigarettes per day. As I'm showing in this picture, it shows a bunch of elderly or older people. Some of them don't look that bad or that old. Ways to help them. What can we do to help them? And it's important to know that people at this age need to have what's called social connections. Older people need the support and companionship of being in a healthy relationship. It's very important, as it was when you were a teenager. This is an important step for their well-being and overall physical function. For most who are alone, it's usually caused from a death of a spouse. And as we age, the terms that are used in research most of the time when you're studying this are social networking, support, and participation. What happens when people get older is that a lot of times the various networks that they had um, once was is no longer. And definitely that network is part of being in a relationship. It's important. Many people like to engage in social skills either just by the feeling of belonging or it's because they're looking for employment. But as you get older, it definitely is wanting that longing to be a part of something, even something simple. There's definite gratification with networking, and also the examples of what people like to do would be just meeting with a few friends, talking on the phone, and when, like I said, as people as they age, they lose these connections. The various networks that were once was are no longer. And the negative aspects with aging is that there are also some positives. Even though they don't have a social network, they tend to have a higher quality involvement to whom they are connected with. Some of them examples would be like a neighbor having friends with neighbors. I see that a lot. That some of my neighbors are they're older. They don't have a lot to deal with, so they often will talk to you when you're outside, say hello, try to make conversation. They also are religious a lot of times, so they belong in their religious communities. And also, you'll see that they tend to volunteer. It helps keep them out in the public's eye and have a chance to talk with somebody, whether it's to benefit that person or also to benefit themselves. Reaching out to our senior population is something that really needs to be addressed to a lot of areas in our society. For one, acknowledging the need for social connections is very important. Support and companionship equals a healthy relationship. Research shows that social networking, support, and participation is so important to older citizens as much as it is to our younger society. And like I was saying, if I did not say it before, examples are very simple. A phone call conversation or meeting with friends or meeting with anybody that is willing to spend some time. It's important and it's a simple thing, and they really appreciate it when you do talk to them, even just saying hello in a grocery store. Acknowledging a person when they're older is so important also. And having the small group of friends can help a person realize that they um, have that connection. And also, another thing that I found from research is that when they are stressed and there's worries and problems, they have a relationship and it's a distraction to help them to get through what they're going through. If there's a lot of times, if people are older and they don't have a lot of money, they're living on Social Security, there's sometimes financial issues and very stressful situations, especially if they're sick and they don't have money to pay for medicine, to that effect. So it's important to make sure that they have connections and stay involved within the community or with close friends. Various things as mentioned and that I will be going through again, it's important to have hobbies and all kinds of different things to keep older people very active. And this picture represents people showing the connections that they have when they come together as a group and hopefully get along and bond with each other. Supporting our older Americans is so important. Like I was mentioning, it needs to be intricate, creative, and amazing. With incorporating a garden, they can do many things. One project that did stand out was the Hammond Street Senior Center. This was in Bangor, Maine, back in 2013. The Hammond Street Senior Center began to work with a small window box, and then with the assistance of the University of Maine, they were able to use raised beds and irrigation system to have their garden on their roof. They're able to get 1 month early out of their season and also 1 month later. And it's a great connection for the group and the senior center to get together and work on their garden and have the assistance. It was a great idea, and it's a great video on YouTube that is about 5 minutes long, and it was published by a local television station. So it's important to have some type of things to make sure that you incorporate anything anywhere, and having the garden can be in window boxes, rooftops, raised beds, anywhere on a property of where these older people can be involved with. With all the talk I've been bringing up regarding the issues with our seniors being isolated, lonely, is important because what I'm doing with my project is bringing in the garden to our local senior center. The River Mills Senior Center has a project coming up where they're doing a large garden around a patio, and they are currently on a standstill with their funding. Hopefully within 2 weeks the garden will be worked on and I'll be a part of that. However, currently I decided to go in and plant my own flowers, which I did, and I have a few pictures showing that. So it's coming along really well, and part of that is to help bring in pollinators, butterflies, bees. The River Mills Center is along the Chicopee River here in Chicopee, Massachusetts. And with working, when I go to water the plants and take care of the front property where I have them, there's actually an abundance of wildlife I've been finding when nobody's there, encountering birds, various birds, groundhogs, I don't know, geese. I guess that goes under birds, but there's been quite a few animals hanging around. So hopefully the flowers are doing well, and I took a few pictures like I mentioned. So the River Mills Senior Center is where I'm incorporating part of my project into my presentation. What I've been doing is getting this together, is trying to make sure that I teach the senior center about sustaining a garden for pollinators. Some of the suggestions were choosing native plants in their own environment. We could put wildflowers, which are also known as weeds. They do have those. Especially in the spring, the queens are looking for nectar and keeping various plants blooming all season. It's time and patience, making sure you don't put like a lot of mulch down. Bumblebees, there's a lot of bees, and a good majority of native bees, not just your honeybees, that will make holes in the ground and have a nest in there. They're solitary insects for the most part, so they make individual nests. So using mulch actually buries areas where, everybody wants everything to look neat and uniform, but it's actually taking away from the bees to have areas that they can make their nests. So supporting a garden will help maintain the pollinator population. As I wind down on my research, the bottom line is that you want to bring joy and satisfaction to anybody who watches a garden grow and participates in the care for the garden. And I think the senior center is going to really benefit from this. We want to make sure that there's sustaining my project and respecting our elders. I think that's really, really important, and that's part of why I did this. I think awareness of the older Americans is huge, and I think this is going to be a great way to bring that out. And I hope to sustain it and keep it going by volunteering and doing crafts. I want to thank you for listening. This is my reference pages of where I got my research from, and I hope you have a great evening, and thank you so much for everything in the past 6 weeks. Have a great night.